Hello everyone, this is GM Nick coming for you live post Tablecon. And one of the most common questions I'm getting at Tablecon is which one of these 16 games exactly should I be playing? And the answer is probably something along the lines of it depends what you like, what I like, whether you're new to the hobby, whether you're old to the hobby. There's a lot of factors that come into it. I share with you some of my favorites that you may or may not like. Now, this is not to say that any of the games I don't talk about are bad. I'm just going to talk about some of my favorite games and some of my favorite picks that I love to GM and I would love to play. Most of the games that I love to GM, I also want to play. So it creates this weird kind of cycle when I'm GMing the game and I feel like I want to play it, but nobody ever GMs it for me, so I have to GM it myself. And one day, hopefully, somebody will also love it enough to GM for me. And yeah, that's why I started the Alternative RPG Club. So yeah, now you know a little bit more about that. Anyway, let's talk about some of the top picks. First of all, we have Delta Green. I know after this whole high energy video, you may not think me of a very depressing person, but there are two types of people who love Delta Green: masochists and people who really, really, really love mysteries. You love mysteries so much you don't even care if you're able to solve it or not, because Delta Green is a kind of game where nothing really goes well for your character. There's always more questions than answers that you get, especially when you go down that line of investigation. So if that is something that appeals to you, then yeah, Delta Green is a really good pick. Think of X-Files and SCP, except with less organization. There's not really an overarching reinforcements that you can call in or anything like that, or an organization to back you. You are the cavalry and you have to decide how you want to handle this. Whether 10,000 people die or one person that you have to kill in the back of the head, he's innocent, but he's hosting a demon inside of him. That's your decision to make for this game. And sometimes, it leaves you a little bit like, ooh, why did you do this to me? Why did you make me make this decision? But that is what Delta Green is all about, making the hard choices. And I'm certainly not going to pull any punches when I run this game. That defeats the whole purpose. The next thing I'm going to talk about is Pathfinder. Now, all you 5e people know that Pathfinder is the closest thing to D&D 5e, and for good reason. I think Pathfinder is a really superior game in every single aspect, through combat, through roleplay, whatever you can think about. Pathfinder is better. It has more character options. You get new feats every level. The combat options are very meaningful. It's not always about doing max damage. The team play is super important in the game as well, so everybody has to work together. You can't just min-max and have one character do all the damage and just aim for max damage all the time. It doesn't work like that. That's a very good way to die in Pathfinder. But also, it has very unique stories, and I would say the way the modules are written are way better than the ones that D&D or Wizards of the Coast have. So yeah, top pick for me would be also be Pathfinder. Something if you want something like a little bit more familiar, if you are coming from D&D 5e and you want to branch out into something a little bit different with more mechanical weight, Pathfinder is really excellent. One of my favorite games of all time. Next thing is something of a surprise hit. A lot of people were asking me about this game during the con, and we got so much interest in the game that I just had to put it in the brochure and come up with a campaign for it. And the game is Kane. So that one over there. Kane is Chainsaw Man. So you guys know I really love Makima, as you can see. Chainsaw Man plus Jujutsu Kaisen plus Persona. In this game, you work for an organization and you fight monsters known as Sin. And sins are manifestation of human suffering and emotional distress. So the game is half about finding out who the host is and trying to answer some questions about how the sin was even created. And then the later half of the game is all about entering this palace, in a sense, dungeon, and fighting the big boss and getting rid of that sin. And the more questions that you answer about the host, the easier this task will be for you. So it has a really unique gameplay loop in that sense. And of course, you have like cool psychic powers. You can slow down time, you can make things float, you can shoot bullets from your finger. So really anime kind of stuff. And if you like that kind of story, this game is really for you. Next thing is the three on the same page, the Old School Essentials and the Shadow Dark Lost Sense of Jerome. Alright, so if you're looking for something very simple mechanically, something that lets you really explore and be immersed in a new setting, a dungeon or a fantasy land, you can't go wrong with the Incandescent Grottos and Myths and Legends of Temasek, as well as Lost Sense of Jerome. Okay, so Incandescent Grottos, one thing about it is that it is a very classic kind of fantasy dungeon crawl. You find a hole in the ground, there's lots of mana crystals in there, you're a bunch of treasure hunters going in, trying to extract as much value for the shareholders as much as you can. Shareholders being yourselves, because you're independent adventurers. And along the way there you might meet some monsters and make friends with them maybe, or work against them and set them against each other as factions. So one thing about dungeon crawls that people mistake, or there's a misconception I would say, is that there's going to be a lot of combat, but really that's not the case. In a lot of these old school dungeons, you're very fragile, so combat isn't the thing that you want to aim for the most. In fact, there's a lot of factions within these dungeons that you can kind of play off with each other, and there's a lot of roleplay in that as well. And the roleplay also comes in from creative problem solving. Like I said, combat is not the way you want to go in this game. Usually, there's going to be some, but usually you want to be in a really advantageous position, and to do that you gotta think. There's no spell here that will automatically solve problems for you. So that's what I love about the game: creative problem solving, and it rewards smart and creative players. Okay, so I've talked about Incandescent Grottos. Then we have Myth and Legends of Temasek. This one is of course inspired by our very own mythology and stories from the past in Singapore. So if you want some NE in your dungeon crawling, this is the one to go for. And of course, Lost Sense of Jerome, this is actually my top pick. It's a sandbox set in an Arabian kind of setting. There's lots of mystery, and if you're into that vibe of Alibaba and 40 Thieves and Aladdin, those kind of things, Lost Sense of Jerome for Shadow Dark. I hope to see you there, because I really want to run this one. It's going to be so exciting. We're going to go through different dungeons. We're going to find some treasure in the ground, and it's up to you. Maybe you want to stay all the way in the city and play with the factions in there. There's going to be the Sultan. There's going to be the King of the Thieves Guild, different types of factions wrestling for power. And if you really want to turn this into a city campaign, that's fine too. The beauty about these three games is that you as a player decide the story based on the choices that you make. Not me. I don't have a story to tell. The story is your choices. And then lastly, I would say the one I always advise everyone to try out, whether you're a GM or a player, is Blades in the Dark. It's a heist game that has some really unique mechanics, and it has really changed the way I DM and GM games. And I think it offers a lot to players to think about when you play an RPG, because one of the most crazy mechanics in the game is something called, for flashbacks, you can literally rewind time to an earlier point where you might have done something differently. So, for example, you will come across a heavily guarded door by the bank, and there are these two guards standing there, right? So you can tell the GM, hey, I want a flashback to earlier in the day when I was scouting this area and I took note of who the guard was. I followed him home and then I sidelined him and threatened his family and like told him like if he didn't let us pass, I would hurt everybody in his whole family. So you make that threaten roll and you pass. So now when you come back to the present time, that guard looks at you with fear and you kind of squint at him and he runs off in the other direction bringing his friend with him, and now the coast is clear for you and your friends to enter. So yeah, you can think about most RPGs, you think about things in a very linear way. What happens next? What can I do next? But in this game you can think about the past and how can you solve problems in the past to affect the present, which is awesome. And that's just one of the mechanics that I'm talking about. So Blades is something really special and I think it's compulsory for GMs to play. And that's about it. Like I said, the rest of the games aren't bad. It's just that there are so many, and these are the ones that I would really recommend to people who are new to the hobby, or if you're really looking for something different. Anyway, my name is Nick again. Once again, I'm the founder of the Alternative RPG Club. Hopefully this has been helpful to help you narrow down some of these choices. And please remember, the sign-ups close on Friday as well as the promos. You're gonna get a bit of a discount on if you pay for 5 games and get a cool little 3D miniature printed for you. I don't really have any 3D miniatures right now, but here's a miniature anyway. Thank you so much for stopping by our Tablecon booth, and I'll see you soon.